everywhere. In the lab, they float on air.
Intros, that's all done. I'll quickly move on to kind of the challenges that we've seen with having disconnected limbs. Then Satya will cover the solution, which is that Scispot and Zapier partnership. Then we'll pass it over to AnimalBiome to talk about their specific workflow, their case study, and what they have found really helps them and really has improved their workflow. Then we'll talk about some other popular Scispot Zapier integrations that we've seen and that we've been working with. And then we'll deep dive into a specific sample processing kind of workflow automation use case. And then lastly, we'll end it off the last about 15 minutes with a Q&A, but I will encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the entire presentation, and Satya and I and the AnimalBiome team will pause after each slide. And if you have anything, I'll read it out from the chat. Awesome. So let's start off with the challenges. So again, before getting into the solution, I think that, and we at Scispot believe that a lot of modern labs face some issues with having a disconnected limbs and then disconnected to all of their other internal apps, right? So you might be using other apps for project management, for alerting, accounting, forms, right? If your customers, your clients are filling anything out, any other CRM type related integrations. And that can lead to a lot of inefficiencies and delays, having all of those systems be, disconnected. And more specifically, having to do more manual, more double work to make sure that the data entry is accurate in all of those platforms, right? You need to have some sort of source of truth. And if that's dispersed between lots of other platforms, there will always be, more human error prone. You'll have to have a lot of communication throughout you and your team internally, if that's Slack, if that's Teams, whatever the case may be, always notifying people, hey, I've changed that, make sure you change this, and so on and so forth. And of course, spending more time on that, spending more time on these kind of disconnected systems and trying to keep them all connected doesn't leave you much time to do some automation, right? So any automation that you might want to do, is if that's in-house or externally, will take time at the start, but will make your life, much easier in the future. But if you're focused on doing all that manual data entry, that takes up a huge chunk of time, right? And of course, kind of on the regulatory compliance side of things, having disconnected data is really, really dangerous. And at Scispot, we strive to make sure that we kind of enable our users to be as compliant as possible, to make sure that you have sample traceability in these sample-centric workflows. You know where it started, who registered it, who processed it, created children out of it, whatever the case may be, all of that needs to be traced. So having those disconnected solutions or having those disconnected kind of systems really impacts that. But I'll pass it over to Satya to see how we can fix that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. So I'm going to talk about the solution. But before that, there's a short video that I would play as well. Just as a fun fact, people who joined us late or just trickling in, there is a music video that, or rather the audio that we'll play later in the session, which has been generated by Scispot AI. So do stay till the end of the event. There's some fun stuff that's coming as well. But yeah, coming back to the presentation, thank you for the challenges and introducing the AnimalBiome team. So in terms of the solution, what we heard from various customers was like this disconnected data. And the other use case that we heard was like, customers currently store their data in what we call LabSheet, which is our limbs and database system where all of your samples can be connected together. And on top of that, customers were doing a lot of automation, so rather than building one-off automation, we did partnership with Zapier to be able to streamline all of this together, right? So that's the part we will be covering today. But let me play this video shortly and then talk about specific use cases as well.
Ever dreamed of running your lab on autopilot? With Scispot's new Zapier integration, connect with over 6,000 plus apps to supercharge your lab's productivity. This integration is perfect for various use cases such as data entry automation, sample tracking, and report generation. Imagine all your lab data being updated in real time without lifting a finger. Setting up automations or zaps is simple. For example, when a sample status is updated to sequenced in Scispot Sample Manager, you can automatically send an email to the computational team. With just a few clicks in Zapier, you can seamlessly connect your wet lab operations to your dry lab team.
Brilliant. I hope the sound quality was good, but if it wasn't, I can share it with audio, but sometimes Zoom plays up. So I will share these slides again, but before I share these slides again, just want to talk about briefly the use cases that we've heard. So Scispot's partnership with Zapier offers seamless integration that connects various tools, as you saw in the video. And what this does is it enables automated workflows for lab efficiency. So for example, if you register a sample, you can notify folks on Slack. If you sequence a sample, you can manage the journey of where exactly your sample is. So we'll do a deep dive on this specifically for all of these use cases, but I do want to give the spotlight to amazing AnimalBiome team who've joined us, who's an amazing customer of ours, and we've been working with them, and they will talk about all the cool things they're doing and also talk about how Scispot is enabling them in their particular workflow. Over to you, Elisa, Novia.
Okay. Thank you so much, Satya. I'm going to share my screen very soon, but thank you again for the nice introduction and for hosting us in this workshop. We are very honored to work with you all. So let me just share my screen very quickly. Perfect. So again, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to just briefly describe what are the goals and the aim of AnimalBiome. So at AnimalBiome, our goal is to help pets suffering from gastrointestinal and skin disease, which are the most common conditions. And so in the US, there are around 60 million pets, and 50% of them, they go to vet visits. And they are prescribed with a temporary solution that don't solve the issue at all. And so it will form a medical merry-go-round. So those solutions are temporary, and pets will keep going having the same conditions over and over again. So we aim to improve the health and well-being of companion animals through advanced microbiome testing and personalized dietary recommendation and targeted supplements, especially that one. So by addressing these common health issues, we strive to enhance the quality of life of pets and their owners. So at AnimalBiome leverages cutting-edge technology to address these challenges. And so we provide insights to pet health thanks to our microbiome test and our supplements, but we also offer a database and biobank of microbial discoveries. So we have an advanced research and development going on right now. And because of that, we also offer our expertise to partners through our microbiome research services. And we also have a stool bank to support microbiome health initiatives. So our platform includes our home fecal test that is very convenient for the pet owners to collect a sample. And so we also have an online profile that is where pet owners can easily access the results and the insights of the gut microbiome of their pets. And so what we do, we sequence the full-length 16S RNA gene through high-throughput next-generation sequencing with PacBio SQL2E. And thanks to our computational microbiology, we are able to give advanced data analysis and also actionable insights, so recommendations for dietary change or supplements to improve pet health. So this is AnimalBiome at glance. We are around 50 employees. We are a startup founded in 2016. From these 50 employees, 75% are women, and 25% of us has a PhD degree. And so this is what is the R&D team right now. R&D team is composed by, of course, our CSO, Holly Gans, which have has more than 15 years of studying the impact of the microbiome in the wild and translate this in research to domestic companion animals. And then we have our Senior Director of Microbial Discovery, which is Dr. Neohor Jan, our Senior Bioinformatician, which is Guillaume Jospin, and our Senior Scientist, which is Connie Rojas. And as well as myself, which I'm leading the molecular biology team that I will present in this next slide. So this is the molecular team at glance. The molecular team is the team responsible to process and sequence all the customer samples that we receive every day in the lab. And it's composed by Alexandra Entreleso, which is our laboratory manager, Dan Reyes, which is our lab technician, Novia, which I'll leave the word to her in a very, very soon, which is our lab technician and data specialist, Sarani Pangus, our lab technician, Catherine Kirk, another lab technician of us, and Victor Magdaleno Garcia, which is our last to the team. And so I highlighted with our green which are the people that are working on making Scispot possible. Well, of course, for our team, first of all, because we are the one that we process all the samples, we have to make sure that we collect all the information necessary to give the results to the pet owners. But we are also responsible to translate our needs on Scispot also to the rest of the company. So these are the people that are actively working on making Scispot possible for the entire company. And so I will leave the word to Novia, which she will explain our current pipeline in the lab and how Scispot is making our lives much easier in the lab. So Novia, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Elisa. So just to, Elisa already went over a bit on what AnimalBiome does, but to provide a brief but more specific overview of our sample intake process and in the way that we receive samples from pet parents. Our lab team receives sample tubes in the mail, and then we have to log the sample metadata and organize it for downstream laboratory processes and protocols. These samples are extracted and then sequenced to generate our reports. While it may seem small, this step of logging and organizing the metadata can actually become very time intensive, as we receive around 350 samples a week. This leads to a question that we had to solve. Next slide, Elisa. What would be the most efficient way to store and organize a large amount of data? Next slide. So originally we were using Google Sheets to organize all of our lab produced data. This resulted in a few problems over time as our data set grew. We had maxed out on the capacity size of our Google Sheets. Different sheets had to be used to be able to represent the same data in different ways that were needed by our team, our protocols, or other teams. Loading time was getting longer, and searching for specific data could be complicated, and while updating the data was time consuming. Scispot provided an efficient alternative to Google Sheets. We were able to have faster loading times. Their views allowed us to see our metadata and hide unimportant data within the same sample manager so that there is less data redundancy. Updating their data became quick and efficient, and we were also able to search samples using a variety of filters, thus making it easier to find very specific data without having to apply many formulas to figure out what we needed. Next slide. Scispot has been very helpful in automating our sample intake process. While it may seem small, the sample intake, like I said, gets very big. We get around 350 samples a week, and a lot of it was being manually updated before. By connecting Sample Manager with our database, we're able to get automatic sample metadata updates from our database into Sample Manager. This decreased on a lot of time and also data accuracy, because we were just getting data directly from our database instead of having to manually port it over. With the use of bulk action, we're then able to automate the process of updating our sample metadata in a fast and easy way. The reason we were able to do this is we could look up a sample by any column. We no longer had to update samples one at a time and could actually bulk update data using the bulk action feature. And updating the data once also connects and proliferates across all of our lab sheets. Next slide. Now, what we were using Zapier for. So once our lab team received the data and received the samples, we had to have a way to notify our customers that we had received the samples. And what we were using before was we were connecting, and what we're still currently using as we're updating our system, we were using Zapier to connect Google Sheets and Gmail to be able to send customer emails. Then we had to individually search for customer name, pet name, and customer email on our database to update our Google Sheet before we were sending out the customer emails. To be able to send out these customer emails, we had to have different tabs for our different emails with our various use case scenarios. So this process ended up being time consuming and was spread across not just our team, but other teams in the company to allow us to be able to send out this, what seems like a simple task of sending out customer emails. As you can see down at this screenshot on the bottom, this is like an actual screenshot of our Google Sheet that we were using to send out customer emails. So we were sorting it into our different templates. So it actually was it is a very time consuming task. Next slide. So with Zapier on Scispot, with the use of filters, we're able to more efficiently select a batch of samples to send an email using one of our multiple email templates. So all we have to do is go onto our sample manager, go to the specific view we want, apply whatever filters we need for the criteria for that email, and then mark all. And then by selecting the Zapier native UI, we then see like the pop-up which shows all of our Zaps. And then we can select the Zap that we would want. This greatly reduces the amount of time spent manually copying and pasting samples into different tabs on Google Sheets, while also having a easy to use UI for teams outside of our lab team. Next slide.
Thank you, Novia. Thank you for the nice overview of what we are currently doing in the lab. And thank you for explaining so in a very good way how Zapier on Scispot will be very beneficial for all of us. So I would just conclude with this slide, which I'm doing a comparison of the two different workflows. Zapier through Google Sheets is kind of like time consuming and is a very long process for all of us because as you noticed from the previous slide, we need to update multiple Google Sheets in order to get Zapier to be triggered and send the emails to our customer samples. While with Zapier through Scispot, we can, easily and in a very fast way do sample intake on Sample Manager. We just need to apply filters and select the samples which we want to send the emails and then trigger Zapier through a simple click. So we are looking forward of having this connection on Zapier, and we just want to thank Scispot for making it possible for us. And I will leave the word to Satya again at this point.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alisa. Thank you, Novia. Thank you for your kind words. And it's awesome. Like, it's very inspiring, the work that you're doing. And I'm glad that Scispot is playing a role in terms of automation and helping you save time. So we'll move on to our next part of the agenda, where we'll talk about other specific use cases as well. So as we mentioned, like Scispot is a Zapier partner. So there are various use cases that we're hearing across different customer base. And AnimalBiome talked about the sample intake, the registration, and how sending emails can be streamlined. And I'll briefly talk about other use cases that I've heard as well. So let me share my screen and we'll go from there.
And also super quick question that I think will lead in perfectly to our next part from Anthony. We use Monday.com. How will this integration help if we use Scispot?
Awesome. Yeah, I can answer that question. So a lot of our customers use Monday.com for like project management use cases. I'm assuming that's how you're using Monday.com as well. And then what they do is like they have the experiment data, the protocols, the metadata of samples, the inventory, the reagents, all of that recorded in Scispot. And what they usually do is like Monday.com handles like the tickets for project management, but then you can link those boards, those tickets directly into the Scispot metadata. So that part is automated using Zapier. But I'd love to know, like, if you have a specific use case in mind, you can put in the chat. But we'll talk about some of those use cases shortly in this presentation as well.
And another thing, if you could cover from Jeff, could Zapier be used to link different data analysis softwares, for example, Minitab?
Sounds good. I know Zapier supports like 6,000 plus apps. So I'll check if that is there in the library. But irrespective of, like, Scispot has an API. So you could use that to integrate with a tool that is not supported as part of Scispot Zapier partnership. So we have a library, so we can share the list of all the tools that, like, there are around 6,000 plus apps. But the ones that are not in there, I can check if Scispot has an out-of-the-box connector, or if it makes sense to like programmatically use Scispot API to build it. Awesome. Any more questions, Hannah, before I proceed?
Nope, but folks, feel free to ask whatever is on your mind.
Brilliant. So in terms of like the popular use cases, they are around alerting, project management, CRM integration, accounting, and forms integration. Those are the ones, like, at least I've heard a lot. We just talked about like the email alerting communication a little bit, but there are other use cases around alerting, which basically linking it with Outlook, Slack, Teams. So any part of your LIMS workflow, the sample workflow, you can trigger these events or notification depending on what type of communication tools you use, right? So that's like a one bucket of use case. The second one is more around project management. So we had a question already on that. And the most popular tools are like Asana, Monday.com, Trello, Jira, ClickUp, where for project updates, those can be integrated in your like sample workflow or the experiment workflow. Either that's the ELN or the LIM system, depending on the use case. And then there's like a CRM integration, which is Salesforce, Zoho, HubSpot, Pipedrive, depending on like what type of CRM you're using. So let's say if you are working with CROs, or your CRO, CDMO yourself, and there is like interactions with your customers, how do you manage the automated lead tracking for that, right? So if you're using a CRM system and you want to tie in that automated lead tracking with your internal projects, or want to see the updates from projects outside, those are some of the use cases as well. And then the other bucket is like accounting, where a lot of folks use QuickBooks, Zoho Books, or Xero for like their financial process automation. And let's say that you want to link some of that to your inventory items, right? So you have certain metadata for your inventory, whether that's your consumption or whether that's your like out production, or it could be like you want to link it to the cost that you incur on specific experiments, and you want to account for that, and you're doing some of the reporting or reconciliation in your accounting software, that can be automated as well. And then the last bucket that I've heard so far is like the forms integration. So some of our customers, they have their storefront. So they might be using Shopify, Typeform, Jotform, Formidable Forms, or Google Forms. And that can be also integrated within Scispot. There's one other interesting use case, which is around like equipment calendar integration. So I will cover that in more detail shortly. But yeah, these are the buckets that we've heard. And what I would love to know is, before I kind of go do a deep dive on these use cases, we'll do a quick survey and see like what would be like a good use case from the audience, right? So would love to hear from the audience. So let me trigger the survey itself. It should only take a couple of minutes. And once we have the response, we can then share that as well. Okay, so I've just launched the survey. Hannah, if you can give me a quick thumbs up if you can see the survey.
Yep, all good.
So these are the buckets that I talked about. So if you could select, which bucket makes most sense for you, this would give me a good sense. So when I'm doing a deep dive, I can like make sure we cover that bucket in more detail.
And also, Satya, quick thing, do you mind full screening your pitch? I think that would help a bit with the visibility as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, if you think your use case isn't covered in the survey here, feel free to state what that use case would be in the chat if it's not one of these 6 things that Satya just went over.
Okay, last chance, 30 more seconds. I can see like 15 odd people have already responded. So if you haven't, would love to hear your response as well. Brilliant. So I'm going to end the poll. It's funny, like 65% people have selected alerting communication. So that's good to know. And then 18% have selected the second bucket, and then 6% have selected the CRM. So I'm going to share the results as well. So it's kind of like clear that folks prefer alerting a lot, but then there are a lot of folks who also prefer project management. And then none of you selected accounting. So definitely maybe less representation from the ops or accounting folks in this call. So maybe it's biased that way, but I think I agree, like alerting is definitely the biggest use case. And what AnimalBiome team also presented was kind of fit into that bucket too. And then project management is also definitely important as well. So that gives me a good kind of guide in to present the next slide. So hopefully you can see the next slide. But what I wanted to do was like, rather than giving examples of like all those 4 buckets, go deep into like one use case. So this use case is like, let's say like you have a diagnostic lab and you want to do automated sample workflow. So meaning combining use cases that demonstrate end-to-end sample automation, from like sample registration to like notification to making sure the compliance and chain of custody is also there. So the first step would be like, you receive new orders, right? So when the new order is submitted in a lab, you want to automatically create the, 1 second, let me stop sharing the results. Yeah, you want to automatically create the order ID with barcode in Scispot LIMS system, which is lab sheets. So you can do that. Scispot offers like integration with Typeform, JotForm, Formidable Forms, Google Forms, and also integrates with Shopify and WooCommerce using this Scispot and Zapier partnership. And then you can create like barcode labels. So you can like create a barcode label and send the kit to your customers, right? Because I'm just giving an example of the diagnostic lab here. And then you can notify the customers with tracking details. And that way, like I think AnimalBiome covered this, where you integrate your Gmail, Outlook, Slack, so you can notify whether you're sending the email or you want to do a notification internally on Slack. You can do that with Scispot and Zap connector. And then let's say the next step is like you receive and register sample. So you register a sample from customer by barcode scanning. You can then create tasks for received samples, right? And those tasks could be Monday.com or ClickUp or Jira or Asana. And these tasks basically are linked with the samples that are inside Scispot lab sheets. But again, it's like a trigger that goes from Scispot to Zap, and then you can do a trigger from like whatever the third-party app is that Zap is connecting Scispot with back into Scispot too, right? So the next part of this workflow is, let's say you notify the lab technician. So in this case, you might want to notify the lab technician when a sample status changes from not received yet to registered, right? And in this case, like most of the folks, at least I've seen, they either use Slack or Teams, and both of that can be connected as part of Scispot Zap. And then let's say if you want to process your samples, which could be like you want to create n number of working samples that are like aliquots, derivatives, or load an assay 96 or 38 well plate. And then you send these plates to instrument like LCMS, qPCR, plate readers, liquid handler. You can bring data back from instrument and QC it within Scispot lab sheet, analyze the data. This part has nothing to do with the Zap part. This is like the native Scispot applications. But since this is part of the workflow, I'm kind of showing you end-to-end sample automation. And then sending reports, right? So once the report is ready, you want to, let's say, notify the QC manager to sign it. So you can integrate that with like Slack, Teams, again, through Scispot Zap. And then finally, like sending the reports to customers. So again, that could be connected to So some part of this is like internal to Scispot, and some part can be done through like the Zap connector. So yeah, I think I would love to circle back on the project management piece. So if the Monday.com question, if you have anything to add, feel free to add in the chat. But the most common use case I've heard is like having your project management tasks linked with your Scispot limbs, or task linked with your actual experiments. So if you do your runs, you want to like tie those runs with like some sort of board in Monday.com or Jira. So if there's anything to add, please feel free to put that on the chat itself. If not, then I would just go to the last piece of analytics. There is a rap song coming too, so we'll play that shortly. But before that, let me talk about the last part of the agenda. And as always, feel free to like put your questions in the chat, and we will try our best to answer them.
I have a super quick one here from Andrew. Does Scispot support creation of report with electronic signature?
Yeah, so you can like, so we are CFR Part 11 compliant, so you can sign your report as well and do an e-signature. You can also do approval workflow. So Scispot, LIMS and ELN system can trigger this workflow. In some cases, customers prefer to like have some sort of workflow where an internal team member kind of reviews the report and then the final authority signs it before that gets shipped out. So that can be done through the signature workflow within Scispot. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'll go back to the slide. So the last slide that I wanted to cover before the surprise song is the automatically generating lab insights as well. So we talked about like the sample manager. We also had an amazing case study from AnimalBiome team. But now I want to talk about like how you can generate some of these charts, you know, using natural language. So obviously, as your data kind of gets end-to-end recorded in Scispot and you've triggered workflows, you want to see some reports or at least talk to that data. So you can do that within the Scispot application itself. So I'm sharing the Scispot lab sheet, and Hannah, keep me honest if the screen doesn't come up. But in this case, like it's an example of like a biosample data manager where I have various metadata recorded for, this is all synthetic data. And within this data, like remember the workflow that I talked about from intake to registration to all the way to like creating reports. But in that workflow, one part we didn't cover was the analytics. So once your data is in Scispot, you can analyze this data using what we call like dashboard, which is a Scispot AI functionality, where you can slice and dice this data and also be able to see like the input and output of how these charts were generated. But essentially, like the way this is done is like you can ask using natural language what you're looking for, and our system automatically converts that into a Python script and then prepare these charts for you in real time, right? And then that way you can essentially like talk to your data, slice and dice information, see how your sample metadata is connected, or even like see pricing information. And let's say if you've done the Scispot Zapier connection and you're connecting this with, let's say, NetSuite or any other third-party system, accounting systems, you can then be able to like analyze all of that data that exists within the Scispot platform using this AI functionality as well. Brilliant. So if there's any questions, now is the time. Hannah, over to you. And after that, I'll play the song that I've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Satya. So we definitely covered quite a lot today with both AnimalBiome's walkthrough and also the other kind of use cases, the dashboards, the sample processing workflow. So I'd love to open the floor for a Q&A. Feel free to ask any questions about the Scispot or Zapier integration. If you have any questions to AnimalBiome, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to answer those as well. So we'll give it, about 15 minutes, and then Satya's very excited to share his favorite new song. So I see we have a question here from Dana. How is the alert system different in Zapier than in the request manager?
Yeah, so Zapier alerting is different. It's basically like connecting Scispot native apps to your apps, essentially. And Request Manager is like a totally different functionality. Alerts is different as well. So alerting is like, let's say if you want to set up alerts within lab sheets, you can do that. But with Scispot Zap partnership, those alerts gets way more advanced, meaning you can control when to receive, where to receive, how to receive. So let's say like you have a Google Calendar and you do equipment booking, so let's say if I have any booking I added on the Google Calendar, I can then use that with Zap Scispot connector and then automatically update the metadata in the equipment manager in Scispot, right? So it's not just alerting, it's like basically also updating the metadata and controlling like how and when to update that metadata based on a certain trigger. So it depends on the use case. If your use cases are more like, hey, I want to connect my in-house tool with Scispot, but based on these alerts and these triggers, then I think this would make more sense.
Any questions to the AnimalBiome team? Anyone want to share anything about their pets? Cats, dog lovers, anyone? Cats versus dogs?
I'm the dog lover. I don't want to start the debate, but my daughter loves cats and I love dogs. So we always have this healthy debate of like why we shouldn't be getting a cat in the house. So, but yeah, I don't know if you have any similar challenges, anyone?
Yeah, I have both, so I can't participate in this debate personally.
Yeah, me too. I love both, but for different reasons, we only have a cat, and we've been debating on having a dog recently. But like when you're renting and you're in an apartment, it's kind of like difficult. So we are postponing the moment when we will get a dog.
I like it, postponing,
Yeah.
it happen, but yeah.
It will happen sooner or later. It will happen, but
like
just not now.
I've also had more dogs, but I love cats a lot, except mildly allergic to cats. So I just use all my coworkers' cats as if they're my cat. Yeah, that's actually
Yes.
the nice thing about AnimalBiome is we're very, very pet friendly. So I think currently at the office we have 2 cats and a dog, like just roaming around.
That's so awesome.
4 dogs and 2
Awesome.
cats. Wow.
Yeah, 4 dogs and 2 cats is quite a lot.
That's handful, but it's good. Okay, so I will share my screen back because this is the part that I'm personally biased on, so I can't wait to get started. So what I did, so I basically asked Scispot is to like generate a poem. I'm going to do this in live time, like in live presentation, which is scary because sometimes AI can hallucinate, but hopefully it would work. So I'm saying create a poem for a really stressed scientist who intakes and processes samples and struggle to keep track of them from registering to processing. So Scispot generated this poem. So that's awesome. In real time, it worked. So this is the poem that Scispot generated. Now I'm going to play a song which has exactly these lyrics, right? So samples everywhere in the lab, they float in air. So I will share my screen again and play this song, and any constructive feedback you have, let's take it offline. But it's still music, so we can have a bit of fun, I guess.
Of every sort, pipettes and tubes, a dizzying array. Data.
I just wanted to check, Hannah, was the quality okay, or do you want me to share again?
Yeah, you're all good.
Okay, awesome.
Everywhere. In the lab, they float on air. Register, process, analyze, report. Tasks unending, of every sort. Samples everywhere. In the lab, they float on air. Register, process, analyze, report. Tasks unending, of every sort. Pipettes and tubes, a dizzying array. Data points in disarray. Hours stretch, the mind does strain. Keeping track, a constant pain. But fear not, dear scientist. Hold fast, for Scispot's here to ease the blast, automate, streamline, make it right. Turning chaos into light with data integrity at its core. Process is smooth, errors no more. Collaboration, compliance too. Scispot's here to guide you through. So breathe deep, let go of stress. In Scispot's hands, you'll find success. From sample start to reports end. A trusted partner, a lab's best friend. let go of stress. In Scispot's hands, you'll find success. From sample start to reports end. A trusted partner, a lab's best friend.
Brilliant. So if you have any TikTok suggestions, I'm all ears. We do have some really good dancers in Scispot too, but sorry, I'm just digressing. And irrespective of the genre of music you like, I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, happy to take any more questions. We can be online for another minute or so.
Just want to add that we're going to play in the lab right now, Satya, just to let you know.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And I'm glad some folks enjoyed it as well. So thank you.
Yeah, there's lots of love for Scispot in the chat. I'll preface this with saying that we thought of this yesterday evening, and it was a joke to start off with. We didn't even know that Scispot could make poems, but Scispot can do many things. So yeah, Satya said, if there's any last minute questions, let us know in the chat. But if you have, any other questions, you can definitely reach out to us by email, LinkedIn, or through our website as well. But thanks so much for coming, everybody, and we'll see you at the next event.
Yeah,
Have a
thank you. And
great
thanks
rest
to
of your day.
AnimalBiome team as well. Thank you for partnering with us in this event. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you again. A good day to everybody.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.